Hello there, Geoff Barton with your ASCL briefing for Friday the 9th of June. Let's talk a little bit about this week. Let's talk a little bit about next week. Let's talk a little bit about the week beyond that. And then we'll leave you in peace to avoid the sun over the weekend. So this week, you look at the headlines, there's been a huge amount about education in the news. Pupils face a lost decade, a devastating report from the Public Accounts Committee who suggests that the department is kind of in denial around the urgency of many of the issues there. Teachers are leaving at the highest rate, all kinds of things about recruitment and retention going on there. Teacher sickness absence soaring during the pandemic. A London school that drops the use of the nomenclature Sir and Miss. A whole variety of things. Vaping in the news today. You're dealing with all of these things. And as one of you wrote in to say to me a couple of weeks ago, today I lost the whole of my music department. It wasn't expected. We have had a music teacher out on long-term absence since January, not being able to secure a supply of good quality staff to cover his work. On Wednesday, our part-time music teacher got another job. It now looks as though we are going to have to remove music from the curriculum. You've got all of that eye-watering statistics about recruitment and retention. And what do we get from the Department for Education? We get this hugely celebratory thing. New data shows there's a record number of teachers in England schools with a kind of emoji of one of those party poppers and applause and stuff. If anything looks pretty cloth-eared, it's that at a time when you on the ground are dealing with recruitment and retention. We really need a sense of a reality check, I think, from the department there. But recruitment, retention, the big issues for you this week. Next week, well, we're expecting an announcement from Ofsted, probably on Monday. We've been talking behind the scenes, as you know, with Ofsted. We've also had our future of inspection report. We think there are some short-term things Ofsted could do to reduce the pressure, particularly on those schools who haven't been inspected for a long time, outstanding schools, at least by ruling in the window when they may be inspected and ruling out the window when they might be inspected. So you're not constantly spending your Sunday nights, your Monday nights, your Tuesday nights, your Wednesday nights worrying about whether the call will come in. There's certainly stuff they could do around their complaints procedure to make all of that more proportionate. There's all kinds of things we think they could do. We'll wait and see what we get from Ofsted on Monday. We do think realistically there's things that Ofsted can't do. It's not up to them, it's up to politicians. So, for example, the ASCL view is that we should move away from having overall grades. That, we think, isn't a decision that Ofsted themselves can make. We think that is something which politicians would have to decide. And already we know that the Labour Party is talking about moving away from reducing something as complex as a school or a college to single grades. So next week you'll get some announcement about Ofsted. Also next week, our council meets in Birmingham. Council are your elected representatives from across ASCL UK. They'll be meeting to do the three things they always do, talking in committees about pay and conditions, the curriculum, accountability and all of that. That's one thing they will do. They're also going to be looking at the future of inspection and looking at making that into formal policy for ASCL. But in particular, this will be an opportunity when what we're going to do is to mobilise, and we're going to mobilise around that unanimous decision that our executive made around industrial action. And wouldn't you just think at a time when all of the education unions are talking about industrial action in the autumn term, wouldn't you think that is the key time when the Secretary of State and other ministers ought to be talking with those of us who represent all of you? Would that not be what you're doing? There's no sign at all of all of that. But that's to say that's coming up next week, Council. And then beyond that, June the 20th, we've got our Lobby of Parliament. Lots of you have signed up to join us there to be able to talk to your MP. That's around funding, making the case for funding. As we edge towards a general election, we need our MPs, our parents to be aware that for all the rhetoric that there is enough funding in the system, the reality is there has been additional funding put into the system, but whether you're in a school, a PRU, a college in particular, there frankly isn't enough. And our college sector is crying out for them to be noticed on all of this. Indeed, we're meeting with the Association of Colleges this afternoon to start a campaign around college funding. So lots going on. So I've said a little bit about this week, a little bit about next week, a little bit about June the 20th. And the other thing I would just finally say is today's one of those days, if I can find it here. Yes, I can. It's a day when we celebrate these people, our business leaders. And I know someone who was a humble English teacher by background, that with the three different business managers, as we called them at the time, that I worked with, I was able to say, look, can you just explain this to me like a 6-year-old? Or here's what I think we want to do in the school. Can we afford it? The default response was always no. But nevertheless, that understated but remarkable role of business leader is something which we hugely value. We think that it should be part of any leadership group. It should also, we think, be part of the independent pay body's review, that we should be looking at business leaders' pay like we would be looking at those people who come from a teaching background. But today it's really just to say, if you are a business leader, can feel a pretty thankless job, we just salute you today because you do extraordinary work. That's it from us, one of my more garbled ones, I think. If you've got things you want to simply tell us, then as always, tell us at ascl.org.uk. And as always, if you need our professional support, then we're here for you as well. You look after yourself in the heat of the weekend. We'll be back with you next Tuesday.